Popular podcast app Overcast has launched clip sharing, a way for listeners to share up to 60 seconds of their favourite podcast with other people on social media. The app produces a video or audio file to share, or a link to a website. Luminary have responded to our many stories about them on Friday, clearly stating that they will continue to remove links from show notes, quote, due to important security concerns. As we reported on Twitter, show notes are left intact in the majority of podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts. Meanwhile, more podcast publishers have requested their shows be removed from Luminary. Stitcher podcasts have been removed, and Stitcher are asking those podcasts represented by Midroll to consider doing the same. PRX, including Radiotopia, are off, and we have a statement from Lantiga Williams & Co. saying similar. We have no plans to remove our podcast. Edison Research is announcing a new set of data for podcast networks and advertising agencies. The Podcast Consumer Quarterly Tracking Report is a subscription podcast which offers bespoke research for individual podcast networks. Podcast host Simplecast has launched a new metric for the podcast industry. That's their claim anyway. Unique listeners. The new metric will begin appearing in Simplecast customer dashboards tomorrow. Transistor, a podcast host, has significantly increased available downloads within its pricing plans. The company is also reworking its analytics algorithms as it works on IAB compliance, which may have a negative effect on apparent total numbers. John Gruber has written a long blog post saying that all podcasts are shows, but not all shows are podcasts. We link to it from our show notes and our newsletter today, highlighting Luminary and Spotify's premium subscription models. Radio Days Europe's Podcast Day has announced their first set of speakers, including founder of Google Podcasts Zach Renaud-Widin and Andrew Davies from ABC Audio Studios Australia. The event is in London in the UK on the 13th of June. Podnews is a media partner and will be there too. There is simply no excuse for the current state of Libsyn. That's according to a shareholder of Libsyn, KMAC Partners, which is demanding all 4 existing directors of the company are removed to, quotes, bring needed discipline to Libsyn and an unwavering commitment to stockholder value. They've suggested 5 new directors, 4 of whom only have a financial background, and the other has just launched a new podcast. Onto Luminary. Audioboom are apparently seeking a further £5 million, that's $6.5 million of funding. They raised $2 million at the end of February. Why are host-read ads so popular with advertisers and listeners alike? Stephen Goldstein looks at the history of the medium in a blog post that we link to in our show notes and our newsletter today. Overcast developer Marco Arment has been vocal about Luminary. However, Leon Zandman tweets him, somehow funny that in the same week you take part in the fuzz about Luminary's proxying of podcasts, you introduce a feature that enables rehosting of podcast audio and enables the audio to be played without hitting the original source. He has a point. Meanwhile, we're looking forward to a special Luminary Premium exclusive that we've discovered called Test Premium Podcast 1. And we also link to Ben Running, who's head of design at Luminary. He was speaking at Design Driven in New York 5 days before launch, and podcast made it to Luminary's slide deck, which was nice. In podcasts today, we mentioned 4 of them. The Detail launched today. It's a new daily news podcast from Radio New Zealand. The Hello Internet podcast sold a special podcast episode for $63 recently on Wax Cylinder. The episode sold out, and we link to a video of them making it. The Koi Pond has been acquired by Starburns Audio. They've also announced a new podcast, The Pat Down, with Ms. Pat. And we listened to and liked The Daily on Friday, talking about the measles outbreak in parts of New York.